day to get together with everyone and catch up. So let me just do a check here and see. Oh, John Truman, good to see you. DeMorgan, Leon, John Yutze, David Tellett. Hey, how you doing? Um, Rick Bear, always good to see you. Happy 4th. Thank you very much. Thank you. Happy 4th of July to everyone. I almost forgot. And that's all I'm going to talk about today, actually, is some fireworks photography. Oh, buffering. All right, hold on. I'm going to refresh. Okay. Hopefully that's better. Good morning, Arthur. How are you? Arthur did a video for me yesterday, posted it yesterday about my watch. Not this one, but my dad's watch. Maybe you guys have seen it before in my other live streams. It's a silver-faced Seiko, similar to this one. This is a SARB 033 for those of you that know Seiko watches and stuff. And the other one Arthur did for me was a Seiko 5, and I put a link to it in my community tab, but let me grab it real quick before I forget, because once the stream starts, just things happen fast, right? There. Hello, Ann Lasipis. Evening me, good to see you. Wow, that's a new name. I don't think I've seen your name here before. And Fotis is here. Roberto Di Donato, how you doing? Roberto Di Donato has been doing some great videos lately. I have a couple to catch up on. I think he did a flash one recently. I can't remember. But Roberto does a lot of Olympus videos as well, and I really love his vlogs and his sense of humor. And Errol's here. What's going on? I'm always late, right? 8 minutes. I can't help it. My sister called just before I got online because we're going out to see fireworks tonight on the boat, possibly. It just depends on the water conditions, because she's going to pick us up in this dinghy to take us out to her boat. And, the dinghy, it may not be able to handle like a 1-foot wave, so to speak. And Arthur McPhee, oh, hey, how are you? Good to see you. And Jeff Painter, good to see you. Paul Kaur, hello from Singapore. Okay, and Plato, of course. And if I missed anyone, I'm sorry. I'm just going to go ahead and get started, because I can go here all day and say hi to everybody, because I really appreciate each and every one of you that come to the stream and hang out. So I did a couple of videos on fireworks. One last week, the first time I really ever tried to do fireworks photography. And I did it for 2 days in a row. Then I made that video about some of the challenges I had. And most of the challenges really, I feel like, were with my timing, ultimately. So I made another video about how to shoot fireworks like a pro. I mean, that was a little clickbaity, but I said, why not? Because I had originally titled it something like how to take fireworks photos. And I was like, man, my video is already 30 minutes long, right? People aren't going to even click on it just when they see that. So I said, I gotta spice it up a little. So I just put that there. But I did use those settings again. If you haven't seen it, basically the settings I recommended were 1 second, f11, ISO 200. And then use an intervalometer to take a picture every second. So you don't have to sit there with the shutter button, or if you don't have a remote shutter release, that's certainly an option. And so I did that, and I got great results for half of the photos. The other half, somehow I missed focus. I don't know, and I brought my glasses with me so I could see, and I thought I had it, but I was just slightly off, just a little bit. So I'm not getting the fine lines like I did the first night I went out. But I did practice what I preach. I stopped after a few minutes and checked the uh, footage that I captured with the intervalometer, and it was just a little bit out of focus, I realized. So I reframed the image, refocused, and then from there, everything was, tack sharp given, the circumstances. And the fireworks display this time was a little bit slower, meaning they were shooting the fireworks up higher in the air and they were taking longer to achieve altitude and a little bit longer to bloom. They were using bigger fireworks, I think. Um, and I was a little bit further away this time, so I should have cropped in a little more. David Crooks did a great job with framing, and he used a remote shutter with bulb. It was with the photography club that I went out with last night, and yeah, he was getting better shots overall, I think, than I was using my automated intervalometer technique because uh, the timing was so different. So I changed. So after I got things in focus, I checked again, and then I realized the framing was a little bit too wide. So I reframed it, refocused, and did. And also, I noticed the fireworks weren't getting a chance to fully bloom, so I changed it to a 2 second exposure instead of 1 second. And then the results were uh, a little better, than, I mean, they were very good already at 1 second. They were just a little better at 2 seconds because the streaks were just a little bit longer, right? Although slightly a little bit higher exposure, but I adjusted for that. I adjusted my aperture from f11 to f16 when I increased the exposure from 1 second to 2 seconds. So I adjusted everything by one stop on both ends, aperture and shutter. So that I didn't overexpose things, but when towards the second half of the fireworks display, they start shooting off more at the same time. So there was a lot of shots that were just overexposed. So let me take a look at the chat here real quick. Marseille from, I can't pronounce that. I don't know why I'm struggling today. Marcio from Argentina. And oh, Roberto, thank you. You like my last fireworks off photos. And Arthur's asking, is Pro Capture useful for fireworks? Not really. You know, if you're capturing at 60 frames per second, that's way too many. 30 frames per second, that's practically video. And I did record some video, which came out really well. The intervalometer with 1 second delay or 2 seconds, maybe even 4 seconds, depending on the show, is best. Certainly, Pro Capture is the extreme end of an intervalometer, right? Effectively. Oh, and thank you, Systema. I appreciate that. David Tellett says, I don't understand why modern cameras don't have the ability to lock infinity focus. That's a good question. Because I noticed in the EXIF data, you do get distance now, at least on one of my cameras. I noticed that it tells me how far away it focused. Like it'll say 29 meters or something. And I kept a mental note of that. I wanted to go back and look at that and share it with you guys. But, in a more articulate way than I am now. But I do see EXIF data for distance. But yeah, infinity focus, why not? Just automatically. I don't know what the challenge would be. I'm not a lens engineer, but. And Dave Nelson, why? Even on a holiday, it looks like all wells here. Yes. Absolutely. And Rick Bear says the master at David Crooks used classic fireworks photography technique. Yes, yeah, yeah. Basically, right. Um, just use a remote shutter in bulb mode. I mean that way he was able to watch the fireworks, and when it was almost near its peak bloom, you can hit the shutter and capture that, right. And if a couple of more fireworks go off, sort of in the it's still in the frame but not overlapping the previous one, you can capture more fireworks because the fireworks were very slow. I mean, they were going about half the speed they were the last time I went. So I wasn't getting multiple fireworks, right? I was getting like two at a time, maybe three, four, five at a time. Yeah, that was not happening with a 1 or 2 second exposure for me. But in bulb mode, you can you can adapt, right, with your eyes, the shutter speed. Um, and then when shooting at night, who uses autofocus? Yeah, I what I do is I wait for the fireworks to bloom and then I lock the autofocus. Then I switch it to manual and just leave it alone so it doesn't try to refocus. So I wasn't liking using autofocus for every shot. I use autofocus for the first shot, and then I set the intervalometer to manual focus and went from there. So it wasn't autofocus every shot. Otherwise, yeah, a lot of shots would be out of focus because the camera would try to focus maybe when the fireworks weren't blooming, so it would misfocus. All the problems with focusing at night, right? And live bulb, there was another photo member there using the live time or live composite. I haven't seen his results, but when I tried it, the process is a little bit awkward because you have to push the shutter button once to acquire a base exposure, and then you have to push the shutter button again when you're ready to start capturing the image. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you're doing it manually, it was very awkward for me. I suppose with a little practice, uh, live time could work just as well as using bulb and a remote shutter. But the screen, the delay on it, because what you see on the live view screen is not necessarily what's in front of the camera. That's the other problem with live time, live bulb, or live time and live composite. There's a little delay, right? It's like what you see on the live view screen is a time lapse of what you see in front of the camera. So so both visually in terms of trying to time things, and then also in terms of mechanics of having to hit the shutter button twice, letting go, and then after you let go of the shutter, noise reduction is automatically applied. So if you're using a 1 or 2 second, let's say you're using a 2 second shutter, then you have to wait for another 2 seconds for the noise reduction to process the image. So it's and fireworks photography is a sports action type photography, really, and all of these delays and workflow issues with the mechanics, of it. I just found it very, very awkward to do it that way. It's just much easier uh, to use a bulb like David was with a remote shutter. And if you don't have that, if you're lazy like me, I just set the intervalometer and let it go. But you have to check every couple of minutes and make sure you acquired focus, that you framed it correctly, that the exposure you chose, 1 or 2 seconds, is right for that particular fireworks show. And like I said, this show was a little bit further away, and blooming and reaching altitude took a little longer. So a 2 second shutter was still a hair short, really. I think a 3 or 4 second would have probably got me even more interesting results with multiple fireworks blooming rather than just 2 or 3 that I get each time. Yeah, and if there's too many at once, it'll ruin live time. So if you're leaving the live time open for 30 seconds, yeah, it's gonna all the fireworks are gonna overlap each other and not look great. And that happens even in 1 second sometimes, right? Uh, but yeah, so if you haven't seen my video on how to shoot fireworks like a pro, um, essentially my key points were to practice and using a YouTube video of fireworks. So play a fireworks video on YouTube and practice with your camera, with whatever setup you're going to use in the field. And my video is really for people that don't have a remote shutter to go into bulb mode. Mine was more of an automated intervalometer type, and all you have to do is make sure you autofocus on the first shot and check the timing and focus every few minutes because it's only 15 minutes show usually, right? Uh, Stop and check, and then make sure everything's going the way you want it, and then keep going. Um, oh, thank you, Mike. Yeah, so like I said, you have to kind of get a feel for the fireworks. So after you set the intervalometer for 1 or 2 seconds, your shutter speed and intervalometer, um, while you're watching the fireworks, look at the back of your screen, make sure the images are what you expect, and then maybe count off, how long it takes for a firework to reach altitude and how long it takes to bloom. And then somewhere in the middle. So if it's like 2 seconds to reach altitude, 2 seconds to bloom, I think a 3 second exposure would work, right? Shutter speed, but then adjust your other settings appropriately. So if you're at 3 seconds, you might want to go to f16 instead of f11. And I tend to underexpose my fireworks shots a little because I want to capture all of the color, right? Because if you leave the shutter open too long, it's going to overexpose, and the colors are going to get a little washed out. And if you leave the if the shutter's too slow, then I'm sorry, too fast, then the fireworks won't have a chance to bloom, and then some other interesting effects like balls of light won't leave any streaks. So it's just a matter of the effect and look you want to go for. But oh, you banned fireworks. That's too bad. Yes, Rick, the Olympus does have a remote shutter app, but there's a little bit of lag, right? Half a second maybe. Any kind of lag, because fireworks happen so fast. I don't recommend using the remote shutter with the uh, phone app, because if you have to change settings, let's say you set everything up and then you go into the phone app. The phone app is, I don't know, I'm just not good at using sliders on my touch phone like this, rubbing my phone left and right, trying to get the settings. Because you may have to change settings, and if you're in the app and it's me, I'm gonna have problems with that. So I have two problems, right? One, there's a little bit of a delay in the screen from phone to cam or from camera to phone, and then when you need to make adjustments, you have to like tap the screen and rub your phone. It's like I don't like that. I like physical controls. But like I said, you can always play a fireworks video on YouTube and practice, right? With your camera and your phone, and see if that gets you the results that you want, right? My workflow, the way my brain and my muscle memory is, I'm much faster at making adjustments on the camera itself and restarting it rather than this. I hate this. I hate using apps if I can help it. Um, and Amir, thank you. Happy Independence Day. And Let's see. There's some. Okay, so that's. I think I'm caught up on the questions and comments. If you have any other questions about anything, just holler, holla at me, as we say in my neighborhood. Yesterday at the salsa dance, I shot at 113th, no tripod to get motion blur in the dancers. It turned out well. Yes, that is awesome. That would be a risky move for me. And oh, also, I got a email from Rick, and I get an email from a lot of you guys, and I really appreciate it, especially when you're giving me feedback about something. I always welcome feedback, criticism, praise, whatever. Questions to my email. It's fine, and it's it helps me to reflect on anything I'm doing on the channel that is what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know what the word is, but I'll give you an example. Um, in this case, it was about my photo editing, and I was talking about the artificial intelligence software in my last stream, I believe. But I've been really impressed with the AI sharpen from Topaz, the denoising from uh, DxO, the Photo Lab, and DxO Prime, and I'm experimenting with some of the other things. And one of the criticisms I get, not just from Rick, but from a lot of people, is when I start editing a picture that has a lot of haze or fog and things are sort of washed out, right? To me, it just looks soft and washed out. Uh, so I apply the whatchamacallit slider, clarity or dehaze or whatever, to try to bring in the scene, right? And the challenge I have, one, I thought maybe it's because I just don't like soft, hazy photos. I like crisp, punchy, strong contrast, low key a lot of times type images. So when I get sent or look at a picture that is soft and hazy, it just doesn't appeal to me. So I try to correct it, and that is not, and it's very important, as being on YouTube and being looked upon as an educator. I don't like to take titles like that sort of make me bigger than I really am. I'm just a guy with a camera, right? But uh, now I lost my train of thought. It's talking about hazy images. Give me a second. God, senior moment. What about hazy images? Well, this is so embarrassing. I totally forgot what I was talking about. I was editing hazy images or something, and then I was trying to get to some point. Well, it's important as a some people might look up to as an educator, or look to, I shouldn't say look up to, but look to as an educator, not to influence my personal choices or biases to my audience. I should be as neutral and unbiased and factual as possible, I guess. Factual is not the right word, but um, and I really try to do that. But sometimes you guys send me an email and you keep me in check, right? Because I'm allowed a little creative license, right? As a photographer. But I realized upon self reflection that I don't like hazy, soft photos because I'm not good at taking pictures like that. because there are some beautiful photos out there that are very soft, have this sort of ambient mood to it that's very relaxing and not like in your face punching, scratch your eyes out like the kind of photos I take sometimes. There's photos that have a very soft and pleasant sort of imagery to it. And a lot of times when I'm editing, I take that away. And I do that because I'm not good at taking photos like that myself. I just, I kind of realized. And that's probably why I don't like them and don't and edit them the way I do. So it's more of a reflection, not on the photo itself, but a reflection of me not being able to take a good photo that has that sort of scenery to it where things are kind of soft. Uh, but anyway, I just wanted to kind of get that out there that when you watch, when you're trying to learn something and you're watching a YouTube video or you're taking a class, just be very conscious of the educator themselves, that they are not putting their biases and opinions into your own, influencing your own opinion and what you like to do and how you like to do things. You want to take what they have and as as a point, right? But you don't have to agree with it necessarily, or go in that direction. I think agreement's too strong a word, but you don't have to go in that direction if you don't like it. Because I remember another viewer here, Marcel, used to send photos in, and I think he said he was in a class or something. I don't know, but he was getting criticism on some of his editing because his editing's very extreme with the light painting, and he's very creative. And I told him the same thing. I said, don't let your instructor influence who you are and how you want to do your photos. You do them the way you like them. And if he can offer some constructive feedback or criticism, that's perfectly fine. Because when I get constructive feedback or criticism, it opens my eyes to things that maybe I'm not aware of that I've had challenges with, like in this case, taking images that are soft, soft imagery, right? But anyhow, I don't know why I'm going on about that, but I thought that was one of the realizations I came to recently, was that I don't like soft photos because I can't take good ones, and then I end up editing other people's photos, maybe beyond the original intent, or taking the photo, changing the photo totally to something different than what the original photo may have been better, right? Anyhow, and then let me just roll back a little bit on the feedback, because I was jibber jabbering for a long time. Oh, John's asking if I'm going to go into some old small towns again. Yes. I did a video on small town America, right? Where I just kind of drove through all these small towns and took some photos and did some editing. And I will do that because I'm going to review this dash cam that I bought. Um, I got a new dash cam. So I'm going to review this, but with this new dash cam, I'm going to be able to make more videos like the one you're asking about. Because this one has a camera pointing at me, so I can talk to the camera while I'm driving, rather than setting up a separate camera like I've done before and fiddling with that start stop. Because when you have a camera there that you have to start and stop and worry about everything, the focus, it's really a driving hazard. It's no better than texting while you're driving if you're recording video while you're driving. But with a dash cam that's on 20, the whole time you're on, I don't have to think about that, and I can just not be distracted by a second camera. So I'm going to be, so this has nothing to do with my small town America videos, other than I can now make them a lot easier, and not risk my life and others doing vlogs. Uh, okay, and then let's see. Haze image editing with Lightroom and DxO. Yeah. Uh, you can add haze, right? I think that's what gaming's saying. Gaming with Stan is saying haze images editing with Lightroom and DxO. Uh, I I never do that. I may have tried it a couple times, but and Dave says Rob Trek does not take hazy soft pictures. There's a reason he's known as the Black Crusher. That's right. I remember you guys were saying a lot about how I used to crush the blacks in my photo. I'm going to do another photo editing live stream this week. I'll post it up soon. And then you guys are telling me, oh yeah, you guys are reminding me of what I was talking about. God, that was so embarrassing. Uh, oh, no, David Crooks is probably having breakfast with the photo club. They went to DC this morning. I just refuse to go into DC if I can help it. But they went to a DC. They did a photo walk in Washington D.C. at the Botanical Gardens, and it was at 8 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. So they started an hour later. So and then we usually go have breakfast or something or brunch after the photo walk. So he's probably doing that. I would imagine. But I just don't like DC with all the speed cameras and the traffic and yeah, that's the main thing. The parking, all of that is just any city. It's not DC specifically. It's just any large city. You got these kind of issues, and I'm just not into it. Oh, Marshall. Okay, Marshall. So Marshall's saying, I'm not just a guy with a camera. I've given you a lot of knowledge to all of us. Thanks. You're welcome. And I will pronounce your name Marshall. I'll try to remember that. And Rick Bear says, we were talking about AI to create technically perfect image at the cost of losing its artistic atmosphere quality. So yeah, he just articulated that a lot better than I did. My whole spiel there. The atmosphere of the image. It can have a natural artistic atmospheric beauty to it without doing any editing, right? And I take it, I take the images sometimes and take that away from the original image. Going back to just because I'm not good at taking those kind of images, so I change it to something that I could take, I guess. Oh, Marcel's not here. Yeah, Marcel does great job. Marcel Van Cotham. And Roberto says, I like the art mode, but some people think it's cheating. Well, having fun is not cheating, right? I mean, having fun with the art filters is what photography is all about, just having fun and enjoying yourself, and going out and like I said, just enjoying the craft and using art filters as part of that, in my opinion. I mean, I still like Olympus Workspace because I can apply art filters after the fact, and I have a feel for what kind of art filters work for what scenes to get the effect that I want. And I'll use the art filters in camera because it's fun sometimes, right? I want to do a photo walk where I just use art filters the whole time, because I've been doing these single lens type photo walks lately. Maybe I'll do a photo walk with just art filters, in camera while you're in the field, which is really the best way to do it. because it's very different when you see with your own eyes the scene, and then you apply an art filter. Then you understand the effect that the art filter is going to have when you're on the scene. When you look at photos when you come back home and apply art filters, it's a little bit different. It's not quite the same, and I don't think you'll learn which art filter works for what kind of scene uh, as well. For me, I work better if I see it with my own eyes, apply the art filter, see the effect it has, then I can make adjustments. Because I might say, this art filter is almost there, but if I dial in a little bit more negative exposure comp, this art filter will be perfect for this scene, or whatever. If I recompose it so that this is over here and this is over here, then the art filter will have this effect, etc. Right? But after the fact, you can still learn from that, but it's not quite as good, I think. And John says, this is why I'm not interested in going down the Royal Photographic Society route in the UK. It all sounds competitive and hierarchical. Maybe. I have no idea. Oh, David is here. You made it out alive, huh, from DC? Now just wait 2 weeks and see if you get any tickets in the mail from their speed cameras. Hopefully not. Cross our fingers, right? I don't want to jinx it. And Arthur says, I've signed up for the Yellowstone photo trip next year, and I'm thinking of getting the Ollie 8-25. Any thoughts? Well, it's a terrific lens by all accounts. I think Jimmy Chang's going to do a live thing tomorrow or have a video tomorrow on it. And of course, Robin and Peter, and I think even Maddie has done reviews on it. Of course, DP Review. So in terms of its sharpness and all the technical specs of the lens, it's everything a pro lens should be, right? Now, as for the focal length, 8-25 at f4, it seems like the ideal landscape lens, right? And it's very resistant to flaring. So I think long story short, it's the perfect lens. So here are the caveats. Don't buy that lens just for that trip. What I do when I don't have a wide enough lens is I just take several shots and stitch them back together. So I'll just go vertical on the camera, use my thumb roughly at the nodal point of whatever lens, and then take three to six photos across, and then stitch them back together, and that's effectively a wide angle lens, arguably with higher resolution, right? So that's what I've been doing. I did that yesterday because I didn't bring my wide angle. I had the 14-150 there, and I got a really cool wide angle shot. Where is it? Let me see. It's button number 2. Yeah. This one. Yeah, this one. This is actually 6 shots stitched together. So it's effectively like an 8mm lens. And yeah, the highlights are a little blown, but oh well. I should have bracketed, because I can bracket HDR and do pano, put them together. But anyhow, and I think this is really a viable alternative to wide angle lenses, because if you don't shoot wide angle a lot, I think $1,100 is a lot of money to spend. And I know it goes out to 25mm for a more normal range, and that's the kicker, right? That's what I feel like. That lens is really almost perfect. I'm definitely going to get it, but I'm going to wait till October, November timeframe to see if we get any kind of discount or any deals. I feel like $1,100 is about $200 too much. So I'm just gonna wait a little bit. So you have some time. You said you're going next year, right? So just wait for it to go on sale. I think at $800-900, it's definitely a lens to get and add to your toolbox, so to speak, for almost any enthusiast photographer. I think at that price, definitely at $1,100, it's just a little bit too much. But that's the thing. It feels like everything's getting so freaking expensive. You want to buy a camera uh, that's not Olympus. It's like three, four, five, $6,000. It's like, come on. Yeah, but yeah, I think it's an excellent photo, and it's nice to be able to capture wide angle in a single shot because it's not always easy to. You can't always do a pano, especially if things are moving in the shot, right? That you want to be part of the image. Like a good example of a wide angle shot that something might be moving in is like a train. You want to take a wide angle shot of the train going across the bridge or something. You're not going to be able to do a panel, really. You might get lucky, but it's risky to try and do that with using this method. You need to capture it in one shot. So for those kind of shots, definitely wide angle's better. Uh, but yeah, that's what I think. Um, and that's why I'm not rushing out to buy it. Or because I have a 7-14 from Panasonic, but I rarely take that out because I can do panos. Like I don't know why this is still up there. I can do panos like the one I just had up if I want to do a wide angle shot. Uh, Arthur says I crush my blacks too. Yeah, Arthur has a great Instagram uh, account and lots of great posts, and you'll see exactly what he's talking about. He likes very dark, punchy images as well. He's really an awesome photographer. And Mike Ham says, Rob Trek, does bulb mode also auto apply noise reduction? Or can you? I believe you can turn it off in bulb mode. Let me just double check. So if I go into bulb mode, we go into the menu. It's going to be in E1. No, even in bulb mode, noise reduction is on. Yeah. So yeah, that's the only kind of drawback. I wish you could turn that freaking thing off. Let me just test it though. Even though it says it's grayed out in the menu and turned on, let me try it. Wait, I'm an idiot. Hold on. Okay, bulb mode. Yeah, so yeah, sorry, my bad. Bulb mode, you can turn noise reduction off. Definitely. You can turn it off. I was in live comp or live time. I wasn't actually in bulb mode here. So you can turn noise reduction off. It's in the exposure menu or E menu. Uh, that's where you want to look for it. I think on all the Olympus cameras, it's in the menu E. And generally, if your exposures are less than 1 minute long, I would just turn off noise reduction altogether as a default. Giga says it's not bad. Just park at Elephant. I guess maybe parking's okay, but then it's just all the speed cameras to and from the place. We were talking about the photo club meetup this morning at Aquatic Gardens. A challenge of just taking 12 shots straight out of camera would be a good video. You go first. I think 24 shots would be a little more interesting because that's the same number as a typical roll of film, right? So do 24 shots straight out of camera, just like a roll of film. And Christine M says, I am all for trying out and learning the possibilities. Art filter what you have, and then decide what fits my style. Yes. And John Truman says, please see my discussion thread, RE art filters, unlocking Olympus. Oh, okay. Is that in the Flickr group or on the forum? I'll look for it either way. I check the forum every couple of days and try to respond, and then the same thing with the Flickr group forum. It's every couple of days I'll dive in there. Oh, and Arthur is talking about, yeah. So another thing about the 8mm 8 to 25 that's coming out, it does have a filter ring, so you can attach filters to it. And on the wide end, polarizing filters might be a problem, right? Same thing with variable ND filters, especially variable ND filters. You have to be very careful with wide angle type stuff. You start seeing these shades and X patterns and all kinds of weirdness with wide angle lenses and polarizing type filters like a variable ND or regular polarizer. So you will have to be conscious of that and not use them on super wide angles. But the the standard ND filters like that are just one shade, not variable, but a fixed ND filter is fine because they just make things darker. They don't try to polarize. And whenever you try to polarize or do variable things with filters, that's when you run into problems at wide angles. Oh, thank you, Arthur. My other shot. And then Dave Nelson says, if you like wide angle shots, Affinity really stitches them seamlessly. Yes, I definitely am going to do a video on Affinity Photo in a very limited way. Specifically well, I'll have to do a couple of videos on it actually. But I've been using it. It's great. And for the price, even at full price of $50, it's worth every penny. And I got mine at $25. I think it's on sale now for $25. It's just a no-brainer at that price for everything that it can do. I wouldn't use it exclusively unless that's your budget, 25 to $50. You can use it exclusively. But if your budget's a little bigger, I'm still going to recommend Photolab 4 Elite over or in addition to Affinity, not over Affinity. Photolab 4 Elite is not a replacement for Affinity. I look at Photolab 4 Elite as a great photo editor and Affinity as a great add-on or additional tool for Photolab 4 Elite. But if your budget is in the 25 to 50, you're fine. You can get 90% there with Affinity Photo. On the things that I do, you might be 150% there for whatever you do, and you might love Affinity Photo, twice as much as I do, but I like it for the specific features that it has with focus stacking, photo stacking, which is different than focus stacking. Being able to handle layers basically is, and the panorama stitching and the HDR, those things are, all in one package for 25 to $50. And I have not found a combination of free software that does as well as Affinity Photo does all by itself. So I feel like it's a great software for the money. And they have lots of other stuff at really bargain prices. Yeah, the M12 does not have a panoramic mode option. And Giga says, "Good morning, Rob. I was thinking about doing quarter-second exposures tonight and brushing in more front fireworks in Photoshop. What do you think? By the way, I think skinny fireworks, but many of them." Okay, well, I got the crux of your question. Quarter-second exposures tonight, and then brushing in more front fireworks. Quarter second's very short. Uh, so there's, like I said, practice a little bit with your camera facing a video on YouTube of fireworks that are going to be similar to what you think you'll be seeing. You can practice the quarter-second shot and see if it gives you the effect that you want. But I think a quarter second is a little too short because a lot of the fireworks sometimes are just balls of light that spray out in a circle. So you'll see a circle of balls of light going out with no streaks behind them, right? They're just a single ball that goes out like this. And if you're at a quarter second, they're going to be like this. They're not going to move very much, if at all, in that quarter second. Meaning at the distance you're going to be from the fireworks, it may look like they didn't move at all hardly. So a quarter second is going to be a little short, but if you give it 1 or 2 seconds, that ball of light will move about this much, and then you'll get this beautiful like spread. Let me see if I can find an example. Let me go to the other night. Yeah, this one has it. Oops. Number 2 here. You see this. Let me punch in. These fireworks here, these are like just little balls of light that went out. So I didn't actually see this with my eye other than seeing this circle of balls going out. But when you have a longer exposure, this was 1.6 seconds, they have a chance to kind of go out and streak and make this kind of effect. That's not the best example. Let me see. Well, that's one example. This one is kind of the same. Now, see these little sparks here? You know, these didn't really have a chance to bloom or spread in this. This is a 1/3 of a second exposure, so very close to a quarter second. These fireworks exploded very quickly, but it's the same. This up here, these two fireworks are exactly the same. The only difference is when they went off. This one up here just exploded, so all of the sparks spread out very quickly. This firework down here is the same one, but you're seeing it after it's already exploded and starting to dissipate. And with this 1/3 of a second exposure, you just get these little lights, right? Instead of this beautiful streak. So your timing, you know, has to be spot on, and there's a lot of luck there. And you know, you just have to get lucky if you're going to. So I got lucky with this shot at 1/3 of a second, but a lot of times I'm just going to get just these very short lines everywhere if my timing isn't perfect, because I know this just exploded because the center here is extreme. You know, it's got this glow to it, and it shot these, you know, purple and red balls of light out. Anyway, I think a quarter second would be a little bit too fast. your timing will just have to be perfect if you want to get that kind of effect. So like I said, start with 1 second, 2 seconds maybe. If it's a huge show with lots of altitude, 4 seconds. There's you just have to kind of take a picture and after a few pictures, look at them and adjust if necessary. And then here's the link to the Flickr. Oh, thank you, Dave. Uh, Giga says, I have Affinity, not Photoshop. Reminds me of the old ArcSoft Darkroom 2. I'm not familiar with that. I remember ArcSoft, though. I used to have some video software from them years and years ago. Is Affinity software better than Photoshop for panos? I haven't compared them directly, but nothing I've thrown at Affinity Photo has had a problem. It seems to work fine with everything. I've only done maybe 3 or 4 panos with it, but it really hasn't had any problems. But what I'll have to do is keep using Affinity, doing panos, and see how it does. And if I run into an image that Affinity has a problem with, I'll have to try it in Photoshop and see if Photoshop can do it. And then vice versa, right? If Photoshop is having a problem stitching a panel, because sometimes it does, then take it into Affinity and see if Affinity can do it. Because I think I did find one case where I wasn't able to stitch it in Photoshop, but Affinity did a better job. But I haven't, this is all anecdotal, right? I haven't sat down and methodically tested to see which one is better. And that'll come with time and experience with both software. But I can't answer that now definitively, unfortunately. And let's see. Oh, Ed is here. How are you, Ed? And Randy says, oh, hey, Randy, how are you? Randy's in the house. Randy's also a budding YouTuber here, and I started a channel where he drives around, does. So if for those of you that want to see more Americana, Randy does a great job driving around in California in the deserts and stuff, and finding all kinds of neat stuff. So definitely check his channel out if you're interested in that kind of vlogging. And I try not to overdo praise of Sir Rob, but he gives us great place to play and show out pictures to others. Yes. Yeah, why not? It's like I said, a lot of you guys got to know each other here in the forum or in the chat or in the comments, whatever. You can go to my Flickr community and just share your photos, right? I mean, it's I love sharing the photos I take, good or bad, right? I mean, if you look at my Flickr channel or Flickr page, I don't post my best photos. I'd say about it's 50-50. A lot of the photos I post up just for educational purposes and say, I took this photo, I did this, to take this photo. Doesn't mean it's one of my best. I mean, I have very few epic photos, very few, if any. I'm still not, just like I'm not good at taking hazy photos, misty, atmospheric type things. Most of my photos are still just like snapshots, something anybody could take. I'm just getting a little better at processing, though. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely check out your montage, Randy. Is it on your YouTube channel? Let me see. I'll pull up Randy's page. Roberto D. Donato is his channel is the same as his name, but Randy's a little bit different. Um, and I have to go to my subscription page. I don't know why I'm still subscribed to that guy. You just posted something recently. Why isn't it coming up on my page here? I just do Control F Randy. Huh. Oh. Yeah, I gotta pull some of these subscriptions off. There, yeah, your name is just Randy. Duh. I'm such an idiot. Whatever name you see on the screen is usually the same name as their channel, right? The fireworks montage, I don't see a video for it, so I gotta assume that that it's you're talking about Flickr. But this is Randy's web page or YouTube page, and then there's Roberto D. Donato. This is Roberto's page. Um, there's a couple you guys should check out. Yeah, subscription. I have 103 subscriptions. That's probably about 100 too many. I don't know. Let me get off this page. Now I lost my chat window. There we go. You're going to video tonight's show. Yes, I did video mine last night. Might as well show you guys a little bit of that. Let me go to the page. It's this one here. Hopefully the audio is not too loud. Let me turn it down a little. So this video I did, this is from the fireworks last night. I still need to edit this a little bit. The colors are a little bit washed out of the fireworks, you know. But this is actually a composite, right? I took a video of the cornfield, you know, on the same scene. No audio on the fireworks. Oh well, it's just popping sounds. Let me turn it off. I mean, if I put my mic up. I mean, we all know what fireworks sound like, right? Let me mute that. Oh, look at a little bird flew by. That's kind of cool. But yeah, I took a video of the cornfield. The cornfield was a little bit over to the left of the fireworks, as well as this mountain scene. And the fireworks were to the right. And they didn't start until about almost an hour after I took this video, because I got there about 8 o'clock. So this video, so this scene here is about 30 to 45 minutes before the fireworks actually started. And then I just put them together uh, in post. And I need to do a little bit more work on the color. And of course, this is the pano shot I showed you, right? Where I just did the pano earlier. I showed you the pano shot earlier. But it's kind of cool. And I'm going to see if I can make... excuse me. I'm going to see if I can... Now I forgot what I was going to make. Oh, I was going to try and make a GIF out of it and post it on Instagram or something. I don't know, wherever it takes GIFs, just for fun to see, because I've never done it before. Man, but yeah, this was a fun night. Met a couple of new photographers that I hadn't seen before in the photo club. This was a photo club event, and you guys should join your local photo clubs. You know, it's really added a new dimension to my social life, so to speak. Because otherwise, I would never go out. It's kind of sad, actually, but okay, that's enough of that. You think that was pretty cool, Roberto? It's freaking amazing. It's okay. I mean, I'm sure people have done better than that. Oh, the Great Vanzina says, I'm thinking about just video the fireworks and freeze frame any good shots for a quick slideshow type thing. Yeah, I mean, if you record in 4K video, you'll get a little better resolution. And because let me show you guys the pieces separately, right? The separate pieces to this video, let me see. Let me turn off this flag. So here's the video of the cornfield, right? And then here's the video of the fireworks. Well, not that one. Where is it? This one here. So if I play this one, you can see it's really dark compared to the video montage that I did. So if you get your exposure right, you'll be okay. I was at 24p. Shutter speed was at 48th of a second. So I was doing the 180 rule, and I was like at f4 ISO. And this is the interesting part. ISO 1600. I gotta work out in my head why the settings are so different than what you would do if you were doing a photograph. I mean, I get the obvious reason, because you want motion in the image, so your shutter speeds and all that got to be different. But so I was at 24 frames. I was in 4K video, 24 frames per second, or 24p, yeah, and 48th of a second shutter speed, and ISO 1600. And that's where my brain is I'm losing it a little bit. I'm sure if I go back up and do the math, it'll make all sense, right? But right now, it's not making sense to me why all that worked to capture these fireworks. Okay. The corn swaying does it, and then the sky, and then the fireworks. Top video. Oh, thank you, Roberto. And I like the little bird flying in every now and then, coming in and out. But it's about 10 or 11 minutes of the 15-minute fireworks show, because I lost a couple of minutes in the beginning because of the I noticed the settings were just throwing me off for video, because I recorded it. Because if you look, I lost a couple of minutes of the beginning of the fireworks show, which is no big deal. But you'll see all these like 2 second, 1 second, 21 seconds, 22 seconds. because I would record a little bit, then play it back to see if it was the exposure and focus I wanted. I'm like, this is probably at ISO 200 or something, right? Or wherever I started, and it's okay, but I felt like it was too dark. Um, so I adjusted it, did another test video. I hit the damn export button. Yeah, so I tested it. Here's 22 seconds, 22 seconds, 50 seconds. So it took me 3 tries to get the exposure I wanted. I think 3. Yeah, these don't count. These are time lapses. But it took me 3 tries to get the exposure right, and that's what I ended up with. So you can try that. It's still a little bit dark in my opinion, but I didn't want to crank it to 3200 ISO, so I left it at 1600 and said I'll try and adjust it. All right, and let me make sure. I got to scroll up a little bit. Dave Nuss says the composite is extremely well. Thank you. Thank you. Rod Mercer. Oh, saying hi to Ed. And Roberto says, freaking amazing. I could sell that on stock maybe. And the Grave NC, I think I'm doing, so that's why I was talking about that video. So hopefully that helps a little, do a few test videos, short videos, and then, I mean, don't worry about missing the first couple of minutes of the show. Those are the small fireworks, right? And Rob Trek is his own sternest critic. Yeah, because, I put all my stuff out there, so I have to be able to explain myself, right? If I put a video or a picture online, I have to be able to explain myself. Why did I do that? So as I start thinking about everything I did to get that shot or that video, I start finding every problem or thing I would do differently, hence being critical of my own work. Seraphin saying, how did you find a great location? Yeah, it's really a combination. It's my camera didn't move, right? I only panned over to the left to capture the cornfield 30 minutes before the show started while there was still light. And then once the show started, I just panned the camera over. So technically it's still a legit shot, right? It's still kind of legit, but then that's what I would call cheating. We were talking about cheating in photography earlier, using art filters and stuff. That's not really cheating. That's a creative decision. And you could call this a creative decision, doing this layering. What do you call it now? It's layering. Composite, I think, is the technical term. This kind of composite is kind of cheating, or is it a creative choice, or somewhere in between, right? I can show you a picture that's a total cheat. I'll show you one of those. The sky replacement is totally cheating. And Plato says, I'm way too modest. Thanks. The corn swaying does, yeah, I read that. And Seraphim says, Olympus has raised their prices quite a bit. So when I had a chance to pick up the 17 brand new for 900, oh yeah. I know, I still kick myself. It's been a year and a half now, maybe a little longer, but I could have got the 300 millimeter f4 brand new from the dealer for less than $2,000 out of pocket. And now it's going for $1,000 more than that. I mean, it's gone up 30% practically. And well, I'm comparing a sale price to the retail price, but it has gone up quite a bit. it would cost me 30% more today than it would have a year and a half ago, brand new. But I'm like I said, I'm comparing a sale price from back then to a current price. You saw a UFO, John? Yeah, they're sneaking up on us. Aliens are real. Even if we're the aliens, they're real. Either way. Starting to think fireworks. Oh, I can't see your profile pic. It's too small. But yeah, drawing flowers, that makes sense. That's a good analogy. Sky replacement's a step too far. Okay, so I think I got everybody. Okay, let me show you. Oh, I'm still on my freaking Lightroom page. I guess that works out because I can go to, let me go to my Instagram. Dang, I got 100 likes somewhere. Yeah. Sky replacement. Total cheat. This is a total cheat. But see, I did put it in here, right here. I've put a LOL. Sky replacement. So I try never to lie. Sometimes I misspeak or I make a mistake, but I never intentionally lie to anybody about my photography or videos. As if that has to be mentioned, but I think it does sometimes because I look at some photos and I'm like, that it doesn't make any sense to me how they got that shot if they did it the way they said they did it. I mean, the only example comes to mind is like that Peter Lick photo that everybody harped on. And then he came out and said, yeah, it's a composite, a lot of his images are composite, supposedly. All right, let me get back to a full screen of my head here. Back to the headshot. Yeah. Oh, Darko's here. How are you? And John follows. Good to see you. Watching the F1 as usual. 8 to 25 F4 Pro on the way. Awesome. Awesome. Great lens. I mean, money no object. I would have one now, but I feel like since it is kind of an object, I'm waiting for a sale, maybe $200 less, That's a pretty steep discount, though. They may not do that. They do it all the time, actually. So if the lens doesn't do well, it'll sell a couple $100 less. And then Duty says, please answer me. What do you think about the Laowa 7.5 for my EM10? I think, it's a great lens for a budget. You have to manually focus, which is not a big deal. I don't own that lens, but anybody that has it, because this lens comes up a lot here in the chat section. I've not heard one bad thing about that lens. So, yeah, definitely get it if that's what's in your budget. I would prefer autofocus personally. If I'm going to buy a lens brand new, but I think it's only $150. I mean, it's kind of on the very low end of lenses in general in terms of pricing. It's great. I think they have a $500 version that has autofocus, I think. But yeah, that's a big difference in price. So definitely I got nothing bad to say about that lens. And Darko's asking, what Nikon camera do I own? I have several actually, but for digital Nikons, I have a D750, a D80, a D40, at least those three in terms of digital. I used to have a D7100, but it broke and I sold it for parts. And then countless film cameras. Uh, I really like my little N75 Nikon film camera. I'd like to get a decent uh, mechanical, like a Nikon FM series, maybe FM2 or something. One day. I'm not in any rush because I have an OM1 and OM2 film camera. But that's where I'm at with my Nikons. How is my neck? My neck is awesome. I will admit though, after the photo editing live stream last week, the next day my neck was aching a little bit. So I have to be it's good that I stopped doing these live streams, 6, 7 times a week, but I still have to be conscious, if I do more than a couple hours, because that last live stream was 2.5 hours. I can't do that. Not until I correct my posture, which I now that you mention it, my posture has been really bad this whole stream. But my neck has been really good otherwise. And DeMorgan says 500 is for the manual focus one. Wow. Okay. Well, there better not be anything wrong with that lens at $500. But I thought there was a cheaper one. LAOWA 7.5 millimeter. Oh, I'm not thinking. Yeah. Sorry, I'm over here. The wrong button. I'm over here. $500. Okay. Whatever I said still stands as far as, the the quality of the images. But at $500, oh, I would probably get this Seven Artisans or something a lot cheaper. Because this is an f2, f2.8. I would get this instead. What else is there? Yeah. See, it's got great reviews too. That's what I would do. $500, that's a lot to spend for a manual focus lens. I mean, if it's a Leica or something, maybe. And you won't find a $500 Leica, but all right, so I have to readjust my answer because I should have looked the freaking thing up before I said anything. Because these lenses are all also alike. But yeah, I've never heard anything bad about the Laowa. Definitely I haven't heard anything bad about the Laowa. And I've heard good things about Seven Artisans, and this Rokinon is a little slow, but oh, this is a fisheye. You want a rectilinear. See, I got to be really careful. Uh, I mean, you can correct fisheye in post-processing, so I wouldn't let that be a deal breaker. If anything, it's kind of an added benefit, but there are other lenses like the Panasonic 7 to 14. You can get for a little more than that used, and there's not a lot of choices though, is there? Fisheye, ultra wide, fisheye. And this I guarantee is a rectilinear. Yeah, this is a rectilinear lens. Okay. I might go fisheye and just correct and post if you can and save $400. Okay. Arthur says a 7.5, a 2.8 is all you need. Yeah, exactly. An f2 for more gives what added benefit? Well, the other than the obvious stop of light, it would make a difference in video, right? Because in video, you don't have the kind of wiggle room you do with photography in terms of post processing. So your exposure, your noise, everything has to be minimized, right? The noise in the photo. So if you're doing video in low light, one stop is a big deal. I think in photography, 2 to 2.8, especially wide angle, exposure is not a big deal. One stop in ISO, who cares, right? You can fix that easily. If you're off by one stop in terms of your exposure, if you miss the exposure by a stop or two, again, if you're shooting raw, you can easily fix that in post processing. So with photography, one stop of light is not a big deal. Um, that's why I like the f4 lenses that are coming out, the 8 to 25, the 12 to 45 f4, because it's only one stop slower than the other pro lenses, but they're a lot smaller and lighter, right? So I like that because we're only losing one stop. But in video, one stop is a big deal. And this lens, this Laowa lens, is used a lot on drones, right? That have the micro four thirds mount. The larger drones and cameras, some cameras, well, all cameras that are micro four thirds. I don't know why I said some, but some drones and all micro four thirds cameras, if you do video, one stop is a big deal. And this lens in particular, they made for drones as well, because they have a regular version, they have a lightweight version, right? One is kind of more plastic inside, the other one is all metal. But that would be why. And depth of field, yeah, is irrelevant at that wide of an angle. And that wide would shoot mainly at 5.6. Yeah, like I said, it in photography is much more flexible. You want to shoot at f5.6, f4, whatever, f11, like I did the fireworks. It's not a big deal. But in video, it's a huge problem. Every stop of light is a big deal. And astrophotography, DeMorgan says, love the Laowas for astrophotography. Yeah, one more stop of light in astro is a big deal too. For very long exposures, it can make a big difference. So it's really yeah, if I looked up the lens before I started shooting my mouth off, I would have gave you a much better answer earlier. But now hopefully you have a deeper breadth of this lens than before, because I definitely skimmed that a little bit too much. Right now you should have a good feel for that lens. If you do photography only, I would save some money and get the f2.8 fisheye. But if you do video, yeah, it's a big deal. And Stephen Long says the Nikon FM2 is a great camera, fully mechanical other than the meter, well built. Yeah, I watched a few videos on the FM2. First thing that attracts me to a camera is how it looks. I know I'm very vain that way, but I gotta like how the camera looks. And then if it's a good looking camera, I'll start to look at its function, right? And if its function is sound and it's quality made, durable, all of that stuff, then all the pieces come together. But if you show me a durable, built like a tank camera and it's ugly, I ain't gonna buy it. Unless I need it specifically for a job, I need a camera like that. But for my leisurely use, yeah, I'm gonna look at the cosmetics, and I think the FM2 is a gorgeous camera. And it's also, very reliable and easy to repair if there are problems. All this stuff about the FM2, I've heard really only good things about it. And Taylor says, I've got the 7 Artisan, it's okay. So not a resounding endorsement of the product, but honestly, at that price level, really you have to buy. It's better to buy the lens when you can get them that cheap and see how much you use it. And if you use it a lot, you may consider spending more on a more of a pro lens. Like getting a 8 millimeter fisheye pro for 700, or getting a 7 to 14 f2.8 pro, or the 8 to 25 f4. Start spending some money on that lens, but initially, try to find a quality cheap lens and see how much you really use it. You may only use it a few times and never use it again. And the great Vanzini says the DF and the 750 here, but my neck can't handle them anymore. I know. And Darko says, I just bought the D7100 and I also a D600 as well as an F90X film camera. Okay. I'm trying to remember the F90. I'm thinking of the N. I think I might. Anyway, I can't remember exactly what that is. How did I like the D7100? Honestly, that is one of the best cameras I've ever owned. And it did everything that I wanted it to until I broke it, but I love that camera. I loved it. And the only reason I replaced it with the D750 is mainly because I fell into the hype about full frame, right? But also because I wanted a larger viewfinder. I wanted to have a nice large viewfinder when I was looking through it. And a full frame camera gives you that by default because it's a larger sensor. But if I had to do it over again, I would have bought the D7100. I should have bought the D7100 to replace the broken one instead of buying a D750. Now, the D750 is a fabulous camera and better in every way than a D7100, obviously so. But for the difference in price, because I bought the D750 brand new for like $2,000. Whereas I could have got another used D7100 for like 600, That's what I should have done if I knew better. And I didn't know any better at the time, That's why I love Micro Four Thirds so much now, because I know better, right? And I don't have a need for full frame, low light capability all the time. Very rarely do I need the capabilities. Let me rephrase that. Very rarely do I need the abilities of a full frame, right? That a Micro Four Thirds cannot do. You can shoot full frame at ISO 6400 with virtually no noise. You can clean it up on a Micro Four Thirds, but you might lose some details somewhere. Full frame, you don't have to worry about that at all. And that's just not, so. But back to the D7100, the only one or two faults with it is it's not really a great sports action camera. The buffer sucks. I mean, I feel like if I hold the shutter button down, I might get 5 or 6 frames and then the camera stops and it just, it stops dead in its tracks, man. So the sports action, it's very weak. You're not going to get bursts off, click, 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 click. You're not going to be able to do that. It's just brutal. And then the other one, the other fault it had was, and if you're trying to pull shadows hard, like let's say you underexpose your image and you need to pull the shadows up, sometimes you get some banding. Not sometimes, almost all the time. You would get banding whenever you tried to pull the shadows up too much. So that's something I didn't get with my D750. It had more latitude and all of that, but banding. So they fixed the banding, I believe, in the D7200 with a different sensor. But the D7100, the shadows, there's banding in the shadows if you try to pull them too much. Uh, so those were not deal breakers for me from buying. If I wanted to buy another D7100, now that I know that it's there, I just have to be conscious of how I shoot and not use it for sports action. Or if I do, just be conscious of the buffer. But uh, if you're a sports action photographer, yeah, don't get that camera's not any good. If you're pulling shadows all the time for whatever reason, because I'm sure there's photographers out there that pull shadows all the time in their work. This is not the right camera. But other than that, man, that camera was really one of the best cameras I've ever owned. Oh, Plato's heading out, gonna go shooting. Awesome. Yeah, I should end here. I'm gonna end at like 1 o'clock or in about 15 minutes myself. Don't forget I'm starting to share my Flickr. Love to share experience with the nice group. Sorry for my rusty English. My language is Spanish. Oh, that's okay, Marshall. Um, but yeah, definitely check out my Flickr page. And then we'll see your Flickr page, and then we can go look at everything you do, right? Because that's the other thing about the Flickr group. I don't want you posting all your photos in my Flickr group, just a few choice ones that you think would be kind of fun to share. But since you have a Flickr page, we can go and explore all of your photography from there, right? Oh, thank you, Marshall. I appreciate that. Thank you for the 200 ARSs, whatever those are. I appreciate that. Uh, and Robin said this AM not to use electronic shutter to save wear and tear as it causes excessive noise and fringing. I don't quite understand. We'll have to listen again. Any comments? I've not noticed it at all. I know that silent shutter used to cause more noise in the images. But as of the Mark II series, the M10 Mark II, the M5 Mark II, and so on, that problem has been eliminated. And I vaguely remember the cause of why silent shutter caused more noise than um, mechanical shutter. Actually, I can't remember why. There was a very technical reason for it that has been resolved, as far as I know. And I use silent shutter most of the time now. I know Robin likes to use mechanical shutter most of the time. And because I saw in his last talk about how Panasonics will automatically switch from mechanical to silent or from mechanical to electronic shutter automatically, whereas in Olympus, you have to manually switch between the two, right? Either you want mechanical or you want silent electronic. And that's because he prefers mechanical shutter. And there's a variety of reasons for that, which are all valid. But I think the least valid point for using mechanical shutter is because silent shutter has more noise. I don't think that's quite a valid point anymore. Because I just haven't seen it. Now, if I test for it and see it, I'll let you guys know. Because a lot of times some things are so minute that you have to test for it to see it. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. Then you see it all the time. And then you never want to shoot silent shutter again, for example, like Robin. I don't know what the reason is, but I seriously doubt he shoots mechanical shutter because he's worried about noise. He probably shoots mechanical shutter for the myriad of other reasons. Like there's you can run into rolling shutter problems or effects, I should say. You can't use flash with silent shutter, at least not at any decent shutter speed, right? You can at like really slow shutter speeds, but not at anything decent. And then the flickering, right? Flickering can be a problem with silent shutter with like different kinds of lights. So those are the three off the top of my head, why you want to use mechanical shutter versus silent shutter. But I think noise would be the least of my worries with silent shutter. 3 a.m. Yeah, I'm sorry for everybody in Australia, man. I know it's 12-hour difference at least. Depending where in Australia you are, that's a big country. Yeah, John's asking the same thing about what Robin's. I haven't watched that video yet. I saw the thumbnail just before I got online, but I haven't watched it yet. I always love to watch Robin's stuff though. He's terrific. He's one of the few people I know can smile for like 30 minutes straight, in his videos. He's just smiling the whole time. It's like that's why he's got like 40,000 subscribers now. And I've been sitting at 20 something thousand for 4 years, it feels like. And Darko says, thanks for the great comments and information. As usual, Rob Trek, you are the greatest. Oh, thank you. And the followers I'll agree with you on the followers are the nicest. I'm not the greatest, though, that's for sure. And DeMorgan says the bit depth is less with electronic shutter, which can make more noise in some shots. That might be the technical reason, but I don't think that was it. I think it was something a little more obscure. That made sense when I read about it. But the bit depth is less. That's interesting. I mean, I thought they were all 12-bit files, but if there's some other processing going on that reduces the bit depth after you capture a 12-bit image, that I'm not aware of. All I can say is in practice, I didn't notice any difference, but I can test for it. I can do a high dynamic range scene, low light scene, high key scene in electronic and mechanical shutter and compare the two and see if I can force any differences between the two. Because sometimes you have to force it, right? It may not be apparent in everyday photography, but if you force it, you can show the limitations of each feature in a camera. And John, you'd say only uses electronic shutter. Yep. And Systema says, I always use silent shutter. Birds and animals will hear the mechanical. Yes, that's true. So, yeah, the advantage of silent shutter is that it's silent. So if you want to be, a little more discreet when you're doing wildlife photos or street photos, silent shutter allows you that. If you're in a church setting, church is the most common one that people mention. They want to use silent shutter. And then Robin had to do a whole shoot using silent shutter in a studio, right? Because sound studios, you cannot have not one little click or cricket in your studio. Oh my God, that's so funny. I wish Music with Sound Gear was here. I'd say, what do you do when you get a cricket in your sound studio? That would be hilarious. Robin Wong is so enthusiastic and smiling, mostly happy. Yes. And he's a happy guy for sure. Yeah, I'll have to force it because it does not show up in most of the shots. Yeah, I'm afraid I will. I didn't have breakfast, so I'm having a V8 instead. And the Morgan says silent shutter is also slightly sharper. Yes. That's the other thing with really long lenses. You'll get sharper images with silent shutter. That is something I ran into even with my 40 to 150 kit lens. When I was shooting at 150 millimeters with mechanical shutter, I was getting shutter shock, where it shook the sensor a little bit during the exposure, and I got a blurry image, or it wasn't as sharp as the silent shutter. So at 300 millimeters, that's even more pronounced, that effect. So if you're shooting long lenses, definitely use silent shutter. You want to see Dave Nunn said he'd love to see Robin Wong do a tour of the west coast of the USA and throw in the Grand Canyon for grins. Yeah, I don't know if I'm sure he has. I can't remember if he said he's ever been to the United States. I'm sure he has. I mean, he's always welcome to stay at my place. That'll save him $1,000 at least on hotel fees. But yeah, any of you guys, Robin, Peter, Jimmy, any of you guys want to come over? I got an extra room. I have two rooms, but this room's used for my studio. Can always sleep on the sofa too. But yeah. Yeah, Seraphin hardly ever uses electronic shutter anymore. No need for it with my style of photography. Yep. Be nice one day if I saw a comment on one of my videos recently about if you learn Photoshop, you don't need to buy any lenses anymore. And I kind of alluded to that, I think, in my last stream. I said, you know, just, you just have a 360 camera and then software does everything else. So if you want to crop in or do HDR or whatever, the software will do it all. And it doesn't matter. You just have a 360 lens, right? We'll get there one day. DeMorgan said electronic shutter is 10-bit and not 12-bit. I I don't I don't remember ever seeing that. Well, I've never looked for it, so I can't. Me saying I've never seen it doesn't mean anything because I've never looked for it. um, but that surprises me if that's true, which I don't doubt. Okay, Dave, we'll see you later. Stay healthy and safe. Yes, and crazy, sure. Seraphin's been using ISO 100 a lot also, when 200 is the native, right? Why would you do that though? I mean, it slows your shutter speed down, which is less desirable in my opinion for most things. Unless there's some processing reason you like it at ISO 100. Mm. On the M1 Mark II, it's 10-bit. Okay. My M1 Mark II is recording the stream now. I have to look it up though. That is curious. And Ed is ISO 100 is a fake set, is it not? Yes, it's definitely it's not a real ISO, just like ISO 400 is not a real ISO. It's processed after the fact to be an ISO 100. So you take the image with the sensor at the native ISO. Well, let me rephrase that. The camera takes a picture onto the sensor, then the sensor feeds that into a processor that looks at what ISO did you pick. The raw data doesn't change no matter what ISO you pick. So ISO 100 is processed a little differently than ISO 400, but it's processed. So is the base ISO 200 is processed, but not for exposure relative to the other ISO settings. It's all digital, right? And really splitting hairs. I think, yeah, DeMorgan says if the dynamic range is not excessive, the 100 gives a much nicer look. Yeah, I've heard that. Some people just like the ISO 100 because it does look different. I mean, I can't see it with my dying eyes, but um, I've heard people say that before, though. They like the look of ISO 100 on their Micro Four Thirds camera. Yeah, it's image processing. Don't split hairs. That's cruel. Yeah, I mean the difference though, because there was an argument made, uh, and a couple of channels tested this or did this. I know Tony was one, and I think I can't remember the name of the other channel, but they took a picture of base ISO and then bracketed plus or minus, right? At ISO 400, 800, 1600, etc. And then they applied the same processing in post. So they took the out of camera raw images that say ISO 400 and 800. And they, that's their first set, right? Two images. Then they took that same image at base ISO 200, then raised the exposure by 2 stops in post processing, because the theory is that the camera's processing ISO 400 and 800. Is it any different than if you process it yourself in software at 400 or 800, raising it 1 or 2 stops? And the end result was that there's almost no difference, right? If you raised ISO in post processing or if you raised ISO in camera, according to their testing, right? And it was very crude testing. They were just using Photoshop or Lightroom and raising the exposure. But the big difference is that the camera is processing the raw data directly to calculate ISO 400 or calculate ISO 800. Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever software is processing ISO 400 or 800 after the camera has already done its processing. Well, hold on. So Lightroom, for example, will take your ISO 200 image and then process it to be 400 or 800, but it's not looking at the raw data straight off the sensor. It's looking at the raw data that's already been converted through the AD digital converter, through all of the processes in the camera. There's a bunch of. I'm not a technical guy, but it's already processed in camera at ISO 200 versus when you're processing it directly in the camera, it's getting to the raw data. So you should get cleaner images in camera if you shoot at ISO 400 than if you were to shoot at ISO 200 and raise it 1 stop in post-processing. And again, it's very subtle, right? But it should be better if you do it in camera. And Systema says, I am often using ISO 1600 or even more since need faster shutter speed and restricted to f5.6 when using a 500. Yes. Yeah, it's tough with the slower aperture lenses, right? And you want a fast shutter speed? Yeah, you have to crank your ISO. And Jesse Espinosa says, not all of it. The gain on the ADCs on the sensor can be adjusted before it gets to the processor, but that might be just on the Astro specific cameras. Yeah, so yeah, like I said, my understanding of this processing in camera versus in post processing, that it's better in camera because of there's you're getting a purer source of the data than you are in the raw file itself. So you're processing more pure data before creating the raw image. Once the raw image is created, the the like a JPEG, the processing software can only work with that. Like I said, it is very subtle. I didn't see a lot of difference myself either, but you did see a difference. My EM1 as 200, the EXIF shows low gain EXIF and 1600 shows high gain. I've noticed that. I never really thought about it, but I did notice sometimes I'll see low gain, high gain in the EXIF data. I didn't know what it meant. But all right, they have a show at Volcano Stadium. Did not know. Where am I going tonight for fireworks? I might go to the marina. It really depends on, I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the stream, because my family has a boat, so my sister called me and says, we're going to go see fireworks on the water tonight. So they're going to take their boat out, find a spot. Supposedly it's going to be crowded, and watch fireworks from the boat. But the problem is they're going out right now on the boat. So to get me to get on the boat, they're going to have to get a dinghy to come pick me up. And if the weather's in the waves are not good, they can't pick me up in a dinghy, and I'm not going to be able to go. So it's very iffy. I won't know till 4 or 5 o'clock if I'm going to go see fireworks tonight at the marina. If I'm not doing that, then I probably won't go out tonight to see fireworks. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Captain Rob, yeah, I have a video of the boat somewhere on my channel. It's called A Day Out with the M1 Mark III or something. But they let me drive it a little bit in that video. It's a nice boat. I think it's a 40-foot something. I can't remember. I'm not really a boat person. But it's big enough that they can't just come back over and pick me up. They have to get a dinghy to come get me. And Jesse says, yes, and I'm pretty sure photo cameras are different. One of my old Canon camera raw files are always ISO 100 no matter the setting you choose. The JPEG producers were correct. Oh, interesting. That is interesting. And DeMorgan says, I'm a dinghy, but I'll not pick you up. Ed says, I kind of liked your film and photo dual setup. Don't bump the tripod this time. Okay. Captain Rob is famous cartoon character here in the Netherlands. Oh, okay. You're going to the Carolyn Bells across from DC. All right. Well, if I don't go to that one, maybe I'll do that one. It depends, though. If I have a friend I might go out with tonight, too, which I mentioned yesterday. I don't see Caroline Bells. Let me do it in maps. Oh, that's in Arlington. I see. I'm looking at this. Netherlands, Carolyn. Interesting. Memorial host. Wow, I've never seen this. I've never been to this side. I've been to the National Cemetery. Oh, I got a photo job at the National Cemetery actually next week or a week after. They want me to record. Well, anyway, I got a job. Yeah. All right. That's cool. Well, I'll just text me when you're going, and then I'll text you back if I can make it or not, Dave. I don't know. There's a lot of variables here right now. So, all right, everyone, I'm gonna kill it here or end it here. So, thanks everybody for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It's always good to see everyone, and I'm going to do a photo editing live stream later this week, so look for that. But either way, I hope to see everyone again soon. Thanks for joining me today. And I will click end somewhere.